Okay, I needed to teach you how to fund your categories when money is really tight. Because in that pre-baby step phase where you're just trying to get money to stretch to all of your minimum obligations, um, that can be a juggle. Now, this is a practice I still do just because I've had it way too many times in my life when things didn't happen the way I expected them to in a bad way. And I just got to trouble. It just presented too much chaos. So I still fund my categories this way, even though now there's plenty to go around. All right. So this is the order you fund your categories. You fund your food. Okay. When I hear people say, we don't have money for food, it means they just don't know how to budget. They just don't know how to prioritize their money. That essentially means from this day forward, if you do not have money for food, it means you didn't make any money, or like there's just not money coming in. There's no money. Okay. Because the first thing you fund is your food. You can go months without a lot of these other things. You can only go a few days before you start to get desperate, especially if you have kids, right? Before things start to get bad if you don't have food. You have to feed yourself. This isn't eating out. This isn't your dating and your dining out category. This is just basic nutrition. Okay, you got to be creative. I know college kids live on ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese. I don't recommend it. You could if a month was tight, but I don't recommend that is a habit for many months. Like that's not part of a plan. That's like survival, but take care of your body. Now, if you don't have money to go through all of your things, you aren't doing organic stuff either, right? You have to be real. You just have to get food inside of yourself. Unless you can have you have a friend who's got an apple tree and a garden and stuff, and you can like get things really cheap from them, or from your own garden. But you're funding food. That's your very first category. Understand? Okay. Now the next one is utilities. Your gas, your heating, your not your internet, unless that's essential for work. Okay. But your utilities, things that keep the lights on, the power on, the heating of the house. Now you got to keep those going. And the reason we pay that before housing is because those are going to get shut off before you get kicked out of your house, right? The time that a consequence happens, it's the consequence comes sooner with utilities not being paid than with housing not being paid. Okay. Now, if you are in months, you like monthly, you cannot afford your housing, your utilities, and your food. Like recruiting some more resources is absolutely essential. You cannot like DIY your way through this. Okay. The sooner you speak up, the sooner you can get out, the smaller the hole, the more dignity you can retain, the sooner you'll be able to help people down the line. Okay. All right. So utilities first. You can, if this is like, oh, this is going to be, a few months things, just be more aware. Turning off lights does matter. Using blinds to keep down heat, it matters. Wear a coat in the house. I've done that. I'm kind of doing it in this house now because the heating is funny. But change your clothing so that you can bring your utilities down. And then be very mindful of wasted spaces, closed blinds, closed doors, blankets, coats, all those kinds of things, fans, but just be mindful. Okay, then housing. Then you're going to pay your rent, your mortgage, right? Really, really important. So the percentage for budgeting, you want to keep your housing in general around 25% of your take-home pay. So like when things are operating smoothly and the math is fine, if your housing is more than 25%, for sure more than 35%, you need to change your housing situation. Okay. Maybe you need to rent out a room. Maybe you need a new home altogether. Okay. If you own your home, this is a bigger thing in general. So I would just say boost your income, like get your income up. That's usually the more fun, more sustainable way. If you love your house, if you need to move anyway, like it's time to change housing, but your housing on your normal good days when math is working right should not be more. It should be around 25% and not more. Certainly not more than 35% of your take home pay. It just puts you too tight for you to advance in the rest of your goals. All right, so then housing is number 3. And then if there's money left over, you're going to fund your transportation to work. Your road trip to your parents' house or your road trip to Disneyland. This is transportation to work. You have to be able to make money to get yourself out of the hole. And then any essential tool. So if you work from home, internet obviously is an essential tool. If your cell phone is an essential tool for work, obviously, you know, then you would pay those bills. But just kind of think, what are the essential tools for work? All right. And then you pay for your insurance. I cannot tell you how many times people have dropped health insurance, or they're between jobs and they don't have their health insurance or their car insurance. And that's when stuff hits the fan, right? Like, even if it's like 2 months, that's just like when Murphy decides to rear its head and just like bestow all of life upon you. It's uncanny. So make insurance a huge priority, but obviously you're not going to pay your insurance if you can't eat. Okay. So these are the orders. These are the top 5 essential things to pay for. Fund them in this order. And what that does is it just keeps chaos from building upon chaos, right? If you're not paying your housing because you paid your cell phone bill and you get kicked out of your house, this now becomes like a crisis. It went from an emergency to a crisis, right? And then if you don't have health insurance, or if you don't have auto insurance and you get in an accident, like just, okay? Then everything else, then you decide according to the priorities, what is the most important between, new clothing and kids activities. And if your money is tight, just cancel the kids activities. Like 99% of the time, your kids activities need to be done differently if your budget is tight. I can go into that all day long about how your kids are going to be just fine. But kids activities for sure, unless they're, pitching in to figure out how to pay for the things that are important to them. Maybe I need to touch on this right now. If you are in crisis, like kids activities, they need to go. There's no correlation between being a good parent and the number or the quality of the activities that your kids, the coaching activities your kids get in. There's none. A lot of time what has happened is you made a conclusion when you were a child about missing out on things, and how like that dealing with that social interaction was hard for you, and you cemented in your brain that you were never going to make your kids go through this. Okay. But here's like the truth of things. You cannot raise your child self. Like you can't go back and raise yourself as a child through your children. And the most important thing for your children is not the number of sports activities that they're in, or gymnastics or ballet or whatever, so they can have a certain number of friends or a certain kind of friends. The most important thing for your children is to have stable, secure parents and home life. Okay. They are sensing the craziness from the money. They're sensing it. They get it. And you being able to clean up and show them the skills that it takes to prioritize and have the maturity to cut out the things that are less important. I'm not saying they're not important, but they are less important than other things. That is a skill that will make them successful. How good they are at basketball is not going to make them successful at life. Okay. It might make them successful if they're one of the 400 players that get to be professional NBA players, right? Or gymnastics or ballet or whatever, but not the life skills. If they cannot manage their money, if they cannot prioritize what's important and what's not, it doesn't matter how good they are at that skill. It doesn't matter how popular they are. They will not be successful in life. Okay. So the greatest skill you can give your child ever is the example and the standard, really, that you choose what is important and what is not, and you live with those consequences. Okay. When they're in college, if they want to live in a dump and, give all their resources to their dancing, that's a choice they get to make. Okay. And sometimes it pays out, sometimes it doesn't. But your children in middle school, elementary, and high school, they need to know that there is food on the table, that the lights will not be turned off, that they won't be kicked out of their house, that dad can get to work, mom can get to work, and that they can go to the doctor when they get hurt. Okay. These are the important things, this safety net. They need to have that. All right. So that's my little spiel on all the other things. So keeping that in mind, also just be willing to say, not right now, not right now. We can't, the $6, the $10 to Netflix, it matters. If you're struggling to pay for food, cancel that Netflix. Okay. You can always get it back. There is nothing in this world that you can't get back. That's important. All right. When you're doing what's right. Now, if you sabotage a relationship, that might be gone, but you were out of whack. So when your priorities are right, there is nothing that you'll push aside that you cannot get back, if not better. All right. So prioritizing this, finding things as appropriate. This is how you will get through this tight part. Obviously, you're working on increasing your income because that's usually what it is. Increasing your income, eliminating, decluttering all the things that are not important right now, and making that math swing so you have a big gap between your income and your outgo.